What's going on, everyone? So in the game the other day against the Milwaukee Bucks, Christian Wood went for a shot and Giannis ended up blocking him. And Giannis wanted to make sure that Christian Wood knew who did it, right? He wanted to make sure that Wood was aware that Giannis was the one that put him on the poster, right? Now, I want to start this by saying, like, they're friends. They know each other. They're buddies. This isn't like a serious thing. Like, some people are taking it as like, oh, look, like Wood. And no, it's nothing like that. Like, they are very familiar with each other because of Wood's time in Milwaukee. So, again, they have a relationship. Want to make that clear. But I love seeing this stuff, right? Giannis talking a little smack. You know, hey, look, I got you on the poster, right? Guess what? Christian Wood responded, and he said, I love it. I'll see him during the season. Just circled the game on my calendar. I love this stuff. I love seeing this from Christian Wood. Christian Wood has a lot to prove this year, right? One, he needs to prove that he can be a culture guy, that he can be a locker room guy, that he can be a guy that can be a part of a winning organization. Now, in his defense, he's never really had the chance for the most part. I mean, even in his time in Milwaukee, he was very limited and, you know, he wasn't like this huge integral part. It was early on. And, you know, now he's in a position to where he's on a legit NBA championship level team. Has the potential to be one of the big pieces to that. He's starting to come around a little bit. He struggled early on, but he's working himself back into NBA readiness, NBA shape, which is very hard to do, and it takes a little time. So usually why guys, that's one of the reasons why we have a preseason, for one. And two, it's usually why guys, when they come back from injuries or a long absence or whatever, it usually takes them a handful of games to kind of really get back to being the guys that they were. Unless it's just like some role player that his job is just to solely just 3-and-D. Or, you know, like a guy like even like Jackson Hayes. Like, so many people are praising Jackson Hayes and talking about Christian Wood's struggles. And look, I love what Jackson Hayes is doing, right? He's doing a fantastic job. And I do believe he's going to continue to do that for the Lakers because of his role and what the Lakers are looking for him to do. But his role is nothing compared to what the Lakers are looking for Christian Wood to do. Christian Wood is expected to play the 5, be a defensive player, on top of being a defensive player, be the guy that we know he could be, and go get you 17 and 8 a game. Now, I don't think he's going to give you 17 and 8 a game just because, again, he's on a team where he's not going to be the second or third scoring option like he has been on many other teams. But I do expect him to still be a 13 to 15 point a game guy. And he needs to be incredibly versatile, right? The Lakers are going to be looking for him to run all kinds of different sets, all kinds of different looks, right? Pick and pops, pick and rolls, right? Also be a defensive anchor to an extent, be able to knock down the 3 ball at an efficient clip, be a legit big man that can be a 3-level scorer. Like, no one's expecting that from Jackson Hayes, right? There's a lot more that Christian Wood has to be great at than Jackson Hayes. The margin of error for Jackson Hayes is a lot smaller than Christian Wood's. And he has to prove himself as a player. And I love, again, it's friends poking each other, having some friendly banter and trash talk. But I do believe Christian Wood wants to get that back. Right? Talked about, I circled that on my calendar. You know, again, these are competitors. These are athletes. These are guys that you think he's happy that he got blocked by Giannis? No, he wanted to slam that in his face and tell him, you know, have a good day, sir. And just, that was that. But unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. Anything we can see to get Christian Wood lit a fire under, bring that competitive spark, get him motivated on both sides of the basketball, I am all for, right? I think he's done a fine job, because I'm willing to let him have time to work it in. And what we've seen from him so far is we've seen what he is capable of doing. He's had games where he was really good. I mean, he had, like, his first 2 games were rough. Then the 2 games following that were great. You know, he gave you 13 points in both games. He shot like 70% in one and like 60% in the other or something like that. And he knocked down a couple threes. He has played some solid defense. He's not going to be Giannis or AD or anything like that on the defensive end, but he's good enough to at least be serviceable and play within the team defense. And that's what we need. That's what we want, right? We don't need him to be, obviously, if he can be that, then that's great. But we're not looking for him to be the defensive anchor. We're looking for him to be another defensive cog in our defensive machine that can have the impact. Right? But again, Wood is going to take an adjustment regardless. His game fits seamlessly, but he's going from a guy where pretty much every team he's been on, he's been the second or third scoring. I mean, even in Dallas last year, he was their second leading scorer before Kyrie came. Right? So you're going from that to being a guy who's like the 6th, 7th guy. Right? Like, he's been the 6th man before, the 7th guy before, but it's different when you're on a bad team and you get to take all the shot attempts you want. And it's just different than when you're on the Lakers and it's like, oh, I'm on a team with Anthony Davis and LeBron James and D'Angelo Russell and Rui Hachimura and Austin Reeves, all guys that could go get you 20 to 30 on any given night. And that's not counting, a Taurean Prince and a Gabe Vincent and, Cam Reddish and, all these other guys that could go get you 15 to 20 on any given night, right? Christian Wood is now, for arguably the first time in his NBA career, just another piece rather than what is supposed to be one of the key pieces. So that's going to be an adjustment in and of itself because he's going to have to adjust to that role. He's going to have to adjust to not playing 25 minutes a night every single night and getting, 15 shot attempts or whatever, he gets, right? He's going to have some nights where he's only going to get 8 attempts, right? The 2 games in which he scored 13, he only got 8 shots up. And he's going to have to play within an offense. He's not going to be one of the guys that are a main go-to. There will be times where he's that. There will be times where, the Lakers are going to give him the ball and just say, hey, go to work, go to town, right? And you also have to keep in mind, and I know some people have heard me say this before, but I really want to make this clear because I still see a lot of people, Wood is struggling, He didn't have a place to go this free agency. He didn't sign with the Lakers till like 2 weeks before training camp. So any workouts, anything he was doing was all independent at like local rec centers or high schools or wherever he could go to go get a gym. That is not the same thing as actual NBA games and minutes. That's a big difference, right? And we've seen him be very good. We've seen him be aggressive, be physical, do the power dribble, and finish through contact. He's also been getting hacked like a madman and just can get no whistle love. I don't know why this guy can't catch a whistle, right? Like, this dude is just getting clobbered down there and nothing. It's crazy to me, but still, right? Like, he could have been running 10 miles a day, taking 10,000 jump shots, lifting weights for 10 hours a day, whatever, right? He could have been doing anything great. He could have been playing at his local YMCA. You could play in the Drew League. You could play in a semi-pro league. You could do whatever you want. It's not the same thing as actual NBA basketball, logging actual NBA minutes, getting adjusted to the actual NBA pace. So there's a lot that Christian Wood is working with. And I know that this is just something very minor that, again, in passing is just very fun and just nothing to be taken too serious. But I love Christian Wood's response, and I love and hope that this is something that continues to light a fire, right? He should already have a chip on his shoulder. He should already have a fire lit, right? I'm hoping, and I'm not saying that necessarily this is the thing that finally gets, no. Like, he should have had that fire and that passion and that, like, let's go. Right? Because again, he's fighting for longevity in the NBA. He's fighting for a better contract. He's fighting for maybe a bigger role elsewhere, or maybe it's with the Lakers, right? Sooner or later, LeBron's leaving, right? So if he can show that he can be a guy, be a key piece, I mean, he could, eventually be a starter for the Lakers, right? And move into that power forward position, or maybe, slot alongside AD and they still run positionless and he's like the center or whatever, right? Like, he could have a long-term role with the Lakers, but he's got to build that. He's got to establish that. He's got to show that he's capable of being one of those guys, right? He's had this stigma and this perception built of him. And some of it is his fault. Some of it I just think is just overblown nonsense. But, he's not without his own doing, right? But he's a guy that I believe has shown enough promise out there from what we've seen in these preseason games that I believe he's going to be very significant and a very important piece for the Lakers. He's a guy that I absolutely believe that if the Lakers hoist that Larry O'Brien, Christian Wood is going to be one of those guys that we look at and go, man, he was huge for us, right? Like he was a factor in us winning. I'm not saying he's going to be the main piece or he's going to be, necessarily a second or third piece or anything like that. But I do think he's going to be one of those guys that, like, we might not have won without him. I wouldn't be surprised if in the playoffs we have a game where Christian Wood takes over late or something, or just has himself a game and, all of a sudden we win that game because of him, right? He's also hasn't gotten that experience of playing in the playoffs yet. He's talked about that, right? So he has to prove that to himself as well, and he needs to show and deliver. And I hope he did. I really genuinely hope he circled that on his calendar, took note of that, print that picture, put it on your wall, whatever, put it on your locker. If I was LeBron or somebody, I would take that picture, or Darvin Ham, I would print that picture and put it on his locker room and tell him to leave it there. Every game, I want you to look at that. And I would leave it with his comment and everything. You see this? Here's your comment. Here's what Giannis did to you. Remember that, right? Like, let's go. Every team is looking to do that to you. Every team is laughing at you. Everyone is looking at you as like, oh, you just this guy, right? Don't worry, he'll be out the league soon, like all the others we've seen. Is that true, or are you going to show it, right? Light that fire under him. Let's get him burning. Let's get him hot, because he's a hooper. He's a hooper without a doubt, and I fully believe that he's going to have an impact this year. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Again, this is just something that, I thought was worth the conversation, because I love seeing this stuff, and I want to see him. I want to see him shine. I want to see him thrive. I want to see him, take things personal, and I hope that this is something that he's taken personal. I don't mean personal in the sense of Giannis is, no, like, again, they're friends, they're buddies. Right? They're poking at each other. It's all good fun. But I hope he takes the perception personal. But anyway, again, let me know how you feel down in the comments.